Cool bugs, winter survivors. Since we had a very severe winter in our area this year, I thought it would be a good idea to look into what insects do, how insects survive winter all over the world. Insects are ectothermic, which means they cannot generate their own body heat and they must rely on external sources. So, in order to survive winter, they have evolved two strategies. One of them is migration. Migration is a complete avoidance of the temperature that pose a threat for some species. Unlike birds who make a round trip while they are migrating, as for insects, in some cases the individuals that migrate in one direction may not return, and the next generation may instead migrate in the opposite direction. For example, painted lady is a butterfly whose annual 15,000-kilometer round trip from Scandinavia to Great Britain to West Africa involves up to 6 generations. What if not migration? Those that can't migrate to warmer climates either tolerate freezing or rely on other mechanisms to avoid freezing. Insects in the northern hemisphere have mostly adapted freeze avoidance strategies because the winter months are longer, colder, and more extreme. Insects in the southern hemisphere, where cold temperatures are short-lived and less extreme, adapted freeze-tolerant strategies. Some insects overwinter as larvae and they dig deeper into the soil until they reach below freezing parts. Some overwinter as nymphs. Nymphs of some insects, such as dragonflies, damselflies, and mayflies, live in ponds beneath the ice. They're in fact active, eat and grow all winter. But during the extreme cold winters, the dragonfly larvae will stop growth and enter in a state similar to hibernation. In situations like this, scientists have found larvae as old as 6 years. Some overwinter as eggs. Only few insects lay eggs that can survive winter. Praying mantis is one of them. In the late fall, female praying mantises lay eggs which lay dormant during the winter. Some butterflies, for example swallowtails, pass the winter in pupal stage, and Luna moths hibernate under leaf litter as a tightly wrapped leaf cocoon. Some overwinter as hibernating adults. Most temperate zone butterflies survive the deep snow and frigid temperatures of New England in a stage called winter diapause, in which metabolic and respiratory rates are low and slow. The cold itself is not a direct hazard to the butterflies. Rather, it's the formation of ice crystals in body tissue that can quickly be lethal. To keep from freezing, butterflies reduce the amount of water in their blood by as much as 30% and then thicken it with glycerol, sorbitol, or other antifreeze agents. The butterfly that you see in the picture, which is morning clock, can withstand temperatures down to minus 80 degrees Fahrenheit, but only if they have time to produce these antifreeze agents. If you put a morning clock in the freezer on a warm summer day, it will quickly die because it lacks any antifreeze. They need time to produce it. One of the most fascinating freeze avoidance strategies is the production of antifreeze proteins. Antifreeze proteins are produced by all freeze-avoidant insects because they prevent freezing from occurring by inhibiting the growth of ice crystals. In Alaska, snow mosquitoes overwinter in adult form. When temperatures start to drop, they tuck away in tree bark or bury themselves in the leaf litter and begin the process of supercooling. Supercooling is a process by which a liquid can remain liquid below its usual freezing point. A supercooled liquid must remain completely free of any impurity. Even a speck of dust can serve as a nucleation point for ice crystals to form. After snow mosquitoes rid their blood of impurities, they can survive winter temperatures as low as minus 23.8 degrees Fahrenheit. How do insects do supercooling again? As the weather turns colder, insects begin cold hardening, the process which they prepare for colder temperatures. In freeze-avoidant insects, this process involves removing all potential ice nucleation sources from their body, including food particles and bacteria. Some simply stop eating. Others will shed the lining of their midgut entirely during the molting process. The body of this stag beetle larva is almost translucent because it has stopped eating and emptied its whole gut and filled it with glycerol, which is an antifreeze liquid. The production of antifreeze proteins are triggered by daylight. As daylight decreases and insects experience a shorter photoperiod, the production of antifreeze proteins ramps up and reaches its peak during the darkest months of winter. Earth's tilted axis causes the seasons. Throughout the year, different parts of Earth receive the sun's most direct rays. So when North Pole tilts towards the sun, the northern hemisphere receives the most direct rays, so it is summer in the northern hemisphere. And when the South Pole tilts towards the sun, it's winter in the northern hemisphere because it's not receiving the most direct rays anymore. This would be the end. Thank you for listening.